He held her like a promise the world forgot to keep. The sun dipped low behind the cliffs, casting long copper shadows over the red earth. Dust clung to his boots and lined the folds of his coat, cracked leather glinting gold at the seams. The desert around him whispered of ancient things, forgotten wars, old prayers, the ghosts of ceremony. But he didn't hear it. He only heard her breath, thin, fragile, barely there, fluttering like a trapped moth against his chest. She weighed less than she should. Her limbs hung loose in his arms, slack with fever and dust. The pink of her fringed dress was dulled with dirt and dried blood. Gold beadwork shimmered faintly beneath the soot. A woven blanket, lavender and plum, had slipped halfway down her legs. Her head rested against his collarbone, and her black hair, streaked with wind and grit, spilled like ink across his shoulder. 2 eagle feathers still clung to her headband, though one had snapped mid-stalk. Under each closed eye, a line of faded red paint marked her face like drying tears. He didn't know her name. Hadn't asked. Didn't need to. She'd been crumpled outside the edge of town, half buried by wind-blown straw and prickly brush, her hands twisted in her lap like they'd forgotten what they were for. Folks saw her. Some whispered. Most walked on. That's tribal land, someone had muttered near the saloon. She's got no business here. But none stopped. None touched her. Until he did. His name wasn't spoken much these days. When it came out as a curse or a caution. Stray, they called him, like he wasn't a man but something wild that wandered too close to fences. A wrong gunfight, a dead brother, a badge thrown into the dirt. That was years ago, but dirt, like rumor, sticks if you don't scrub it bloody. He didn't carry her to the clinic. The doc wouldn't touch her. Not in this town. Instead, he saddled up, held her tight, and rode toward the cliffs. Sacred cliffs, old cliffs, carved by hands older than rail lines or cattle trails. He remembered them from stories. And from that one time he got lost and nearly didn't come back. He stopped at the base of the mesa just before dusk. The wind tugged at his coat. Ancient dwellings clung to the cliffside above, stone steps winding between hollowed homes, ladders hung like ribs from ledges. The air smelled of sagebrush and ash. A coyote barked once in the distance. He built a fire slowly, methodically, as the sky turned from blood to violet. He laid her down on a wool blanket, tucked the edges beneath her shoulders. Her face turned slightly in sleep, brow furrowing, lips parting with a breath too shallow for comfort. He dipped a cloth in his canteen and wiped the sweat from her temple. Her skin was burning up. He didn't know what sickness took her, but it was close to finishing its job. He sat beside her, cross-legged, arms folded, eyes scanning the cliffs above. For what, he didn't know. Help? Judgment? Redemption? She woke in flickers. The firelight danced across her face as her lashes fluttered. Her gaze found him, then flinched. She tried to sit up, failed, then pushed herself up on one elbow. Her other hand reached weakly toward the pouch at her waist, empty now. "I ain't gonna hurt you," he said, voice low, quiet as the flame. She blinked. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. He took off his hat, placed it on the ground between them, like a peace offering, then held out the canteen. Her fingers hesitated, then wrapped around the tin. She drank in small sips, watching him over the rim. The paint beneath her eyes had cracked. Her bracelet, a tight weave of turquoise and white beads, shifted on her wrist as she lowered the canteen and handed it back. The fire popped. A hush settled in. The kind of hush that feels bigger than silence. He looked away first. "I found you outside the feed store," he said. "Folk just walked past. You looked like hell warmed over. Couldn't leave you there." Still, she said nothing. But she pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and didn't flinch when he reached to stir the fire. Later, he offered her a piece of jerky. She took it, bit slow, chewed careful. They didn't speak again that night. The stars came in thick. The desert breathed with them. He lay on his back, one hand near his revolver, the other under his head, and glanced over at her. She was curled now, facing him, half asleep, the blanket rising with every breath. Her feathers twitched in the breeze. In the firelight, her face looked younger, lighter. He wasn't sure why, but he said, "You ever seen snow fall in the desert?" Her brow furrowed. A small shake of the head. "It happens once in a blue season. Comes sudden. Quiet. Covers the bones and the trails. Like the land forgets it was ever cruel." She watched him a long time after that. He could feel it, like heat through flannel. But he didn't turn. Just closed his eyes and listened to the wind. Somewhere deep inside the cliffs, an owl called. She shifted closer. By morning, her fever hadn't broken, but her hand found his wrist as he stirred to stoke the fire. She didn't pull away, and that was how he knew the story wasn't finished. The girl sat upright now, though the fever still clung to her like smoke. The morning light pooled over her bare shoulders, catching the gold beadwork of her dress in glints, as if the cliffs themselves were blessing her return. The blanket had slipped to her waist, revealing arms marked faintly with ritual ink, symbols of birthright and bloodline. Her eyes were open and sharp now, though they betrayed a heaviness too old for her 28 years. The cowboy crouched beside the fire, sleeves rolled, hands steady as he poured coffee into a tin cup. He didn't speak, hadn't said more than a dozen words since dawn. But the air between them was no longer silence, it was waiting. She watched him carefully, as though memorizing the way he moved. She didn't flinch when he sat near, nor when their shoulders brushed as he handed her the cup. Her fingers lingered against his for a second too long, not in affection, yet, but in recognition. A rustle in the brush drew both their heads. The cowboy's hand twitched toward his holster, but it wasn't a threat. Just a boy. 12, maybe, bare-chested, sharp-eyed, standing on a sandstone ledge 10 paces off. He stared at the girl with the breathless awe of one seeing someone returned from the dead. Then he turned and bolted down the canyon trail like a shot bird, vanishing into the folds of red stone. The cowboy exhaled. That's not the last we'll see of them. She nodded once, no surprise in her face. She pulled the blanket higher, not for modesty, but for ceremony. She was preparing. He didn't know what for. By midday they came. Silent as mist, they emerged from the cliffs, men and women in earth-toned robes, eyes painted, braids tied with bone and silver. The cowboys stood as they gathered in a wide half-circle, their feet planted firm in sacred soil. At the center came the elder, back straight despite the cane, skin weathered like cured hide, and eyes like a hawk's, sharp, unreadable. No words were spoken at first, just the wind through sagebrush. The cowboy took off his hat, lowered his head. The girl stood slowly, wavered once, but found her balance. She walked toward the elder, and though her legs trembled, her spine stayed tall. The elder stepped forward and reached to touch her forehead, then turned his eyes to the cowboy. "You carried her here," the elder said, voice dry as stone, "into the home of her ancestors. Alone, uninvited. You trespassed." "I know," the cowboy said quietly. "You passed through the 5 stone gates without call, without offering. And yet," he paused, looked at the girl. "She lives." She stepped beside the cowboy, then not behind him. Her hand brushed his again, this time not gently, but deliberately. "It is written," the elder continued, speaking to all but looking only at them, "that one who carries the daughter of the cliffs across the death line, who tends her flame when it flickers, if she rises again, he is bound. Unless she refuses him, he is named as hers. Husband." The cowboy shifted his weight. His jaw worked once, twice, as if chewing something bitter. "I ain't," he started, then stopped. "I didn't do this for that." The elder raised a hand. "The law does not bend to the intentions of men." The girl turned to face him fully. Her eyes were unreadable, but her breath came slow and deep. "I'm no good," the cowboy said, voice raw. "Ask anybody down in town. I've spilled blood that didn't need spilling. I've run from things I should have stayed for." She said nothing. He looked at her, this time really looked. At the dried paint still clinging to her cheekbones. At the old scar across her collarbone. At the steady way she stood, though her legs must still ache with sickness. "You deserve someone better than me," he said. She stepped forward, lifted one hand, and removed a feather from her headband. Then, careful and slow, she tucked it into the fold of his bandana, right at the neck. The elder inhaled sharply. Around them, the tribe murmured. The girl spoke her first words then, soft and clear. "You carried me through death. I choose you to carry me through life." He didn't answer. Couldn't. Just stood there with the sun on his face, the fire behind him, and the feather trembling against his throat like it might catch wind and lift him into the sky. The tribe began a chant, low and rhythmic, not loud but full. She stepped closer and leaned her head against his chest, resting just above the scar. He got the day. Everything went wrong. He wrapped his arms around her, not possessive, not unsure. Like someone remembering how to hold something precious without breaking it. By the time the sun began to dip, the tribe had left. Even the elder had faded back into stone and shadow, leaving them alone with the fire, the earth, and the sound of wings high above. She sat beside him once more, leaning into his shoulder. He poured the last of the coffee into her cup. Their hands touched. Neither pulled away. The cliffs behind them caught the light one last time, burning crimson and gold, before the dusk washed everything in blue. He didn't know where tomorrow would take them, whether the town would spit or welcome, whether peace had a place in a life like his. But she had chosen him, and for the first time in years, the weight in his chest felt less like penance and more like purpose. The wind lifted dust around their boots. The feather in his bandana danced, then settled, and he whispered into the twilight, "I'll carry you if you'll let me."